Okay, so today we're going to be looking at Power, which is packs of war each rank. Now, this is a non-collectible card game with a modern military theme. All the units in this, you can see it's the U.S. core pack, so all the units are going to be U.S. military units. Now, each rank, you see these cards here. We have 5 different ranks. We got the private, the corporal, and the E4, sergeant E5, staff sergeant E6, master sergeant E8. What these ranks are variations of the game, how you would set up, how you would split up the deck. The game does come with pre-sorted decks. I'm not a huge fan of the pre-sorted decks. They're kind of grouped together with your infantry, your supply, your armor, your artillery, your air units. And so the lower right hand corner, you're going to have the different colors. Down in the lower right corner, you're going to have a different color. That's how it goes. That's how you know which deck it goes with for the pre-sorted decks. Now, just real quick explanation of the card itself. You have your movement on the right hand side on the top here with the arrows. This next circle, that's going to be your range. You've got your attack power and you've got your defense. There are no dice in this game. So if you can hit the unit, you would hit him with if he's in range, you would attack him with a 2. If that 2 is equal to or greater than the opponent's defense, you're going to destroy that unit. So what I've done here, as I mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of the E2 class, which goes with the pre-built 8-card deck. I really like when you start getting into the E6 and you can draft a deck. I started back in the mid to late 90s playing Magic the Gathering. One of my favorite modes of that to play with were booster drafts. So you get people in your local game store, and you would do everyone throw in a couple bucks, you buy a few packs, booster packs, and you go through, you draft. And so that's how you would build your deck, and whoever won the tournament, won a little bit. A little bit of a prize there, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. It's kind of a throwback to that. So I am enjoying the draft as opposed to the pre-built decks. So I mentioned the pre-built decks. When you play the game, you're going to play with an 8-card deck. Now, the bottom right corner, we talked about that, is the color code for the pre-built deck that this card is associated with. This color on the outside designates the unit type. It helps you with the unit type. This symbol up in the right-hand corner really designates the unit type. And this down here will tell you what it can damage. So this M1A1 Abrams is a ground unit. It is an armor class. It can damage supply, infantry, other armor, and artillery. So you can see on here it cannot fire at aircraft. The AH-64 Apache can fire at infantry, supply. I think I called that infantry last time. That's actually a defense. Armor, artillery, and other aircraft. And you can see here this is what the defense symbol. So you've got your SAM. They can fire at aircraft, actually helicopters and aircraft. On the right-hand side of the board over here would be the expansion that's in the works for the air-sea lane. But right now you're not going to see any aircraft, just close ground support, close air support. So I'm going to set up the game. I did doing this solo, it's a little hard to do the draft, without knowing what the other person, you would essentially know what the other hand is drafting. So I try to keep it a little bit random and not really check and see what's going into this deck. But we'll set this up and come back and see how the game plays. Okay, so what we're going to do is shuffle up our 8 cards. We then place them on our build queue. Now, the build queue is really what makes this game unique. Set this down, and each player would do this. I'm going to set this up on the dummy player to my left. Oh yeah, that's me. Okay, so we're going to play the player on my right or nearest to you as the first player. And so what they're going to do on the very first turn is, however they choose, arbitrarily picking, maybe they like 3. Let's start here. Okay, so they flip this card over. And the top left corner, that has a BQ3. So build Q3 slot, it's going to go face up. Now I can't turn over the card underneath this, but what I can do is any of these other 3, BQ1, BQ2, or BQ4, I can turn it over. When I turn over BQ1, I get the SAM, which has a BQ2. It goes in the 2 slot. I'm going to go ahead and flip this one over here, and you can see it's a BQ1. That's a Javelin team, so they go in the BQ1 slot. Now, I'll go ahead and flip this one over and see what we have. Again, another BQ1. So it's actually going to go on top of the Javelin team. Now what that's going to do is that Javelin team is going to get buried there for a little bit. As we get into the next turn, you'll see that the BQ1 slot goes into the HQ slot, and the other units slide down. So the BQ2 is actually going to cover that Javelin team. But let's flip over the player on our left here. So that was a 2. There's a A10 Thunderbolt. And 3. And then a 1. Okay. Now we're back to here. So this is turn 2. Still no units on the board. And so we're going to jump ahead. These cards here, it's a fairly simple game in terms of complexity. And it's actually so much so that you can almost fit the entire rulebook on, I think there's 7 or 8 of these reference cards. So that's, obviously it's just one-sided. So here's your order of play. You've got your supply phase, your move attack phase, your build queue, and then stay at the end of your turn. On the very first turn, you actually start in step 3 of phase 3. So we did that, but again, there's no units on the board, so we skip 1 and 2 on turn 2, and we're still in this build queue phase. So the first thing we're going to do is shift. That supply unit's going to go on to the HQ because BQ1 goes into HQ. 2 comes down to 1. 3 comes down to 2. And now this card here is accessible. And if I so choose, and for the purpose of this, I'll go ahead and flip it. And it's another BQ3. Now we go back to the other side. Again, no units on the board. And we're going to put this out. And we're going to slide shift down. Shift him down, shift him down. And there. Now, on this left side, there's some pretty heavy hitters in the build queue. I don't want to flip this over. If I flip this over right now, I'm going to cover up one of these units, which means it's going to take longer and longer for them to get onto the board. So let's move on there. First phase is the supply phase. So we bring this unit into supply. When the unit comes onto the board, it's actually out of supply. You signify out of supply units by tapping them, if we can use that phrase. So you untap it, and now he is in supply, and he can move. He's a supply unit. He's not going to do much damage, so right now I'm not moving him anywhere. We're going to skip the move phase, go to the build queue again. BQ1s come on, and then we shift down. There's actually no exposed cards here. Back to the other side, supply phase. They will move up and then shift. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and not flip those over for the time being to try to get those heavy hitters on the board. Over here, we're flipping. This only can attack aircraft, which there's really none out there right now. But we do see that A-10 coming, so we'll be ready for that. That'll be the end of that turn. Bring the Abrams out, bring the Abrams down. I will go ahead and flip him. It's going to cover up my Abrams. So that means that Abrams on this side is going to take another couple turns to get out onto the board. That's one of the chances you take when you start flipping cards, when you've got your premium cards in queue. Over here, we're going to supply this unit. We can move him up. He's got a move of 2 on the Sheridan. Now we're going to bring the howitzer out, the Thunderbolt down, and again, really don't want to cover that Thunderbolt up. So we'll come back over here, bring the Abrams into supply. Now the Abrams can go wreak some havoc. Nothing on, well, I shouldn't say nothing. There's a Paladin howitzer in the back row right now that could take out the Abrams, but he has a range, let's bring him up here, he has a range of 4E, which means he has to hit exactly 4. What does exactly 4 mean? So starting here, if this, for example, if he was here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. But he has to hit it on exactly 4. Okay, so we've moved the Abrams up. We're going to bring the Stinger out. I don't want a chance covering this Abrams up, so we're skipping that. Over here, supply the howitzer. I need to get the Sheridan away from the Abrams. We're going to leave the howitzer in the back row there and leave this player to figure out how to maneuver around him. So now we get the big boy out here. We got the A-10 covered there. Okay, now we can start flipping on this side. We got a Sheridan, Sam, and some of these actually come with a P.O.W.E.R HQ, so they come right out onto the board. Back to this side, we're going to supply. We are going to get this Abrams over here. Now the Sam is going to need to protect that Abrams because that Thunderbolt, well, they don't call it a tank killer for nothing. So the nice thing about the Sam is he can actually fire one whole row. That one capital R is one whole row. So when he's in this location, this whole row is within his range. And he can fire at will. It's kind of like opportunity fire. So as that Thunderbolt would get near him, he would be able to attack. And since the Thunderbolt has a range 1 little r, that's a radius range, meaning anywhere in that radius, the Thunderbolt would need to get to this square to attack that Abrams, but of course he's going to get that first shot because he's in the same row. So now it's going to become a cat and mouse game, really, where the opponent on the left really needs to get rid of the SAM site, which you can do with that Sheridan. We'll continue and see how that plays out. A huge turn of events. The Thunderbolt's going to take out the Abrams. But in this game of cat and mouse, the cat in the sky is going to eat up the mouse all day long. So they're done. He'll come in supply. He is not going to get over here in time. So 1, 2, attack. Takes out the Sheridan. He'll move back. he'll move back. Now the thing is, any unit can break down, flip over, and become an infantry. Never actually talked about how to win the game. To win the game, you need an infantry or tank unit in your opponent's HQ through one of their turns. So just moving him into this square is not enough. The opponent has a chance to remove you from that square. So we've taken their side. He's not going to be able to supply yet. Moves back into HQ. He'll return into supply, but actually become an infantry. He has no firepower, but for the sake of winning the game, he can move into the opponent HQ square for a victory. And what's going to happen here is this A-10 is going to go back, refuel, rearm, come back, take out the Abrams, who, yes, is now on supply, but is just not going to be able to handle this Thunderbolt. And even it's game over here. 1, 2, doesn't have a shot. Next turn, tank officially killed, and as will happen, he'll come down, be in the HQ, game winner. I got beat by the dummy. Okay, so final thoughts again. This can be a real light, quick filler type of war game. It does take something. It's almost a game of chess. You know, it's a game of chess, cat and mouse, however you want to look at it. If you want to break in a new person to the war game genre, this game would be one that can fulfill that for you. It's a non-collectible card game, as we discussed, so it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. Everyone's playing with the same deck, or at least the same set of cards, building decks from the same set of cards. My personal preference, again, is to do the draft types. Not a huge fan of the pre-built decks. And the one thing I didn't even talk about yet are these mats. Now, the game itself, you would buy a core pack. Okay, that'll come with the cards. That'll get you playing, and you can play without the mats. The mats are an extra accessory. It's a real nice. It's basically a huge mouse pad. I've been saying, you know, cat and mouse all day, and here we have our mouse pad. They roll up real nice, easy to store, unroll, lay flat. It's not going to slide around. It gets the job done. Obviously, if you didn't have this, you would have to essentially use your imagination and build up that deck so that without the grids, it's possible. You know, you're going to be able to play it without the mats, but the mats are a really nice touch. Personal preference is this mat with this artwork. Not quite sure why there's two different mats. You've got almost like a actual picture here, and then this one's a topography map, basically, of a village. You know, as a war gamer, really like this mat a lot better than this one, but still, real nice set of mats. Can't go wrong with this one. In fact, if you get two and you just want to play with both of these, sell these back to somebody else, then they'll have a set of these. You can have a set of these. Everyone wins. Overall, as I mentioned, a real nice beginner type of war game, card-driven game, non-collectible. Don't have to worry about buying all sorts of rares and uncommons and whatnot to build the superpower deck. Everyone's going to come and play and be able to hit the ground running with this one. The rules are real straightforward. There actually is a rule set, but these reference cards make it real easy you know, explain to you what the symbols are. Here's the rules. You know, as far as war games go, you're not going to find too many war games with rules smaller than that. In the end, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed.